first of all, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview, having done so many during the last couple of days. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. Yeah, really busy. It's great though. I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way. So I'm just kind of taking it day by day and just can't wait for the record to be out. Really.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, since you're releasing the record tomorrow, I guess, how are you feeling about the release? Because it's approaching now really, really fast.
I mean, just excited to hear what everybody thinks. It's, you never really know what people are going to say or think when you write an album and you put all this time and effort into it, and it could really all be for naught. But yeah, we're just excited for our fans to finally get to hear it, and we've been talking about it with them for years now, and they've been asking for it for a really long time. So for the most part, that's what I'm looking forward to, is finally hearing what they think, and if they enjoy it as much as they have all enjoyed Apex, and if it'll, go down in the annals of time as one of our better records. So it's really just kind of a wait and see moment, but I'll be very glad when it's finally out there and we can talk freely about it. Yeah.
From what I gathered, Apex really scored pretty much high, and a lot of people thought back then it's your best album. What kind of brings that for you? Like, what kind of sentiment? Like, did you feel a lot of pressure creating this, or?
Yes. um yeah, no, that was one of the things that we were worried about, because there's so many people that are fans of Apex. We had a huge expectation to live up to. And we wanted to write this record to the best of our ability, in the hopes of, if not surpassing, at least meeting that expectation. So we started, right from the beginning. We knew we wanted to separate it from Apex as much as possible. We didn't want to try and write the same record again, only better, or anything along those lines. We wanted to write a completely different record that would take the listener to a completely different place, and do our best to have them be two parts of one whole, but still two extremely different records. So that was kind of our goal right from the get-go. And yes, constantly, on our minds was what our fans are going to think, and hoping that we don't alienate anyone with, say the addition of synth or anything like that, and hoping that we could still get that UTA sound on the record without sacrificing, everything that we've learned and everything that has come before. So it was a really fine balance that we were trying to work with on this one, but hopefully it works for everybody.
Yeah, you already mentioned briefly that there's a lot more synths in this album. Now, I'm wondering, because I'm guessing you already knew what the story was going to be. Did you like create a sound that you thought would require like the story to, fit into? Or was this kind of a natural direction that you musically progressed into?
It was a little bit of both. We definitely wanted Abyss to sound different, so that was kind of where we said, absolutely, the synth is gonna help do that. It's gonna take, the listener to a new place, and it's going to kind of create that setting that we're hoping to have on this album. But it was also that we're just so into synthwave right now, and outrun and retrowave, and we're listening to a lot of electronic music, and going to see a lot of, I mean, we were going to see a lot of electronic bands live and everything. So we wanted to incorporate that into the album, because we're just such big fans of it ourselves.
Mhm.
So we kind of said to ourselves, well, this is the time to do it, because it's a science fiction record based out in space with a little bit of a lighter undertone to everything. Now's our chance. And so, yeah, we wrote around the synth for sure on this, and made sure that it fit, and that it was seamlessly integrated into the record, and didn't stand out like something that maybe, was just kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, especially the song Legacy, I mean, the whole album is pretty varied, but I thought that kind of felt like almost a tribute to Devin Townsend.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers and layers of vocals and sound, and he also has that kind of synth sci-fi thingy going on in his music. Um, Plus, he's also, known for concept albums.
Yep.
Is he a big influence for you guys in general
Oh
when
yeah.
it comes to making concept albums?
Yeah, I mean, he's been an influence on us from the very beginning, and he's always been in there in all of our records, but he's never been kind of on the forefront of things. Like you could say, oh, that's definitely inspired by Iron Maiden, or that's totally a Queensryche track. We never really had Devin be, uh, one of those kind of influences. So on this album, we really just kind of went all out. And when Andy brought that riff, that opening riff to Legacy, I knew right away. I was like, oh, this is a Devin song for sure. And so I decided that I was going to do what Devin does, which is like these choirs and layers and just huge wall of sound. And I thought it fit perfectly because, yeah, he does do a lot of science fiction, and he's all about the concept records. And he kind of takes you to this um, otherworldly space with his music, so I was like, this is our chance to do that as well, and hopefully he hears the track and isn't totally offended by it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if you had the chance to let him listen to the track, but I guess not then.
No, but maybe someone will send it to him and be like, hey Devin, these guys, I think they're influenced by you.
Well, I hope people watching this video might bother him with the song. Like, if everyone posts it a lot, maybe he will hear it eventually.
Yeah, tag
Later.
him in everything. Yes.
But also in terms of vocals, I was recently also listening to some older songs you put out, and I feel like your approach vocally has definitely changed over the years, but especially in this last two albums, you use a lot more, harmonies and layers, kind of like what Hansi does in Blind Guardian. How important is it to you to also experiment as a vocalist with every album around?
Oh, I mean, it's very important. You always are learning something new, and so you want to try it out and see what you can do with it, and just push yourself to the max and try new things. And I, I've definitely learned a lot, and for the most part, it's really about the studio and what I've learned in the studio and how to perform to the best of your ability in there, because it's very different. I've always loved the live show aspect of things because I just feel so at home there, and the energy of the crowd kind of raises you up and makes you better and brings you to this place where you just kind of put on your best show every time. But in the studio, there is none of that, and it's all in you, and you have to bring that out yourself. So from like the very beginning, I was just not good. I was very timid in the studio, and the more you do it, the better you get. So as the years have gone by and we've done more and more records, I've definitely gotten way better at doing what I can do live in the studio in front of a microphone. So that was really where the biggest challenge lay for me, is in being able to perform like I do on stage in a little, tiny booth. So yeah.
Yeah, what is it that you try to do there? Do you try to imagine the crowd with you somehow in the studio, or is there a secret recipe to it?
Yeah, I think it's really just all about emotion and instilling as much into the performance as you can. So, I mean, I don't know how many times I've dug my fingernails into my fist so hard that they are like red and there's marks in there, and it's just because it's like you've really got to feel it. And like you got to like stand a certain way sometimes, and it's like this is how I would do it on stage, and you got to like feel like you're pulling the power up from the stage beneath you, even though you're just in a little vocal booth. So, yeah, I think it's all about the mental will at that point. Yeah.
I read somewhere some years ago that you don't really like your time in the studio. Did it change with this album around, or are you still kind of like
I don't know. I definitely I dread it because I just want everything to be perfect, and there's no way, there's just sometimes you just can't quite get it the way you hear it in your head. And time is money, so you never can sit there like if someone maybe like Lady Gaga or something that can sit in there and do that same part over and over again for 2 weeks until she finally gets it the way she wants. We have literally 2 weeks in the studio and that's it. So yeah, you kind of got to get good at being okay with when you can't quite get it to what you were hoping. And I hate that part. And I hate
Yeah.
putting that pressure on myself. Be like, okay, you got like 15 minutes and then you got to move on to the next one. So better get it right. And it's a sucky feeling. So I am not a really big fan of the studio.
So you would also not be this kind of one take person, I guess.
No. I mean, there were some parts where Jacob would just get me to do it like the whole way through, like 5 or 6 times. And then I'd be like, okay, no, let's do it again. He'd be like, no, you got it. And I'm like, no, one more time. And he's like, you got it. Like, stop being a perfectionist. So, I mean, it's a really good thing that he's there, because otherwise I probably would just spend all day in the studio on one part. But I mean, there were pieces that were incredibly difficult where, after 15 minutes, I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he's like, nope, one more time. And he would always say that at the end. You think you did the one more time? And then he'd be like, one more time. One more time. And then it's just kind of like, God damn it. But then, yeah, and then there were other parts where it was just like, yeah, you nailed it first try. You never know which part it's going to be like that. And like I said, the emotional side of things really does help, because if you kind of shut your eyes and you just let it happen and you don't think about it so hard, oftentimes those are the points where it comes out right the first time.
Do you feel like it's good for you that another person is kind of deciding on whether a take is good or not? Because it seems like if you would do it by yourself, you would be in there forever.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I probably would. That's why I really like working with Braden, who is our ex guitar player, and he does sound engineering now. And when we were in the studio back in the day with our first 3 records, 2.5 records, he was always right there with me, helping me like do that. He was like producing the vocals, and I'd be like, do you think that was all right? Or like, is that the right harmony for that? And he'd be like, yep. Oh, or like, no, I think you can do better. So when I figured out how to record my own vocals, I think I did it like maybe once or twice, and then I was just like, nope, I can't do this. I was like, I need Braden. And so I go to Braden's studio and I record with him whenever I do like guest vocals on other people's records and things like that, because I just need that voice there telling me that everything is going to be okay.
Now, moving on to like the writing process of the album, was there already kind of an outline of the album when you did Apex, or did you guys start from scratch after the release?
Yeah, no, both. The whole story was written in 2016. I mean, Abyss wasn't as fleshed out as it became in 2019 when we sat down and started writing it, but it was there. The whole story, beginning to end, Apex and Abyss, was all written together at one time. And then when we actually sat down and started kind of writing it, that was when all the details would come out, and the lyrics were always last. So it was really just kind of like this foundational story that inspired everything, all the riffs, all the music side of things. And then the lyrics would be the last thing that I put on there, because, I know what I need to say. It's just a matter of articulating it.
All right, that's good. You also answered my other question already, so that's good. When I watched the track by track for Apex a couple of days ago, and your book closet there, it was screaming for a question, basically.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of fantasy and sci-fi books like The Passage and Game of Thrones and DC Comics even. And of course, Apex and Abyss being a concept story, how much do these books and stuff like that inspire you to come up with a story?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, a millionfold. I've always been a reader. I've always loved books. I've always loved science fiction and fantasy and all things, really. Comic books, movies, video games, whatever I can get my hands on. So I think it's just that kind of side of my imagination that really enjoys all of that is the same side that wants to write records that tell stories. So yeah, I get a lot of inspiration from everything that I've read in the past and everything that I've watched and all my life experiences, really. And I mean, there wasn't really anything that directly inspired this story aside from like the characters. The matriarch and the immortal were inspired by characters that I'd seen out there in the world already, but I just kind of tried to make them into their own entities, and then that's really where the story came from. But yeah, I mean, it's who wants to write about daily life when we have to live it every day. I just find it so, it's kind of like, no, take me out of here. Take me away. I want to escape from all that, and I want to live life for an hour or so on a long distant planet or whatever, because you don't get that chance in real life. So that's definitely why I choose to write that kind of music, because I myself enjoy listening to that kind of music as well.
Yeah, actually, like the whole like thing about the concept album always reminds me of Aryan, like the Dutch project by Arjen Lucanson. And
Yeah.
this year around, he's always also releasing a new album, and there's going to be a comic book. But it made me wonder, is that something you also would like to explore with the band, like bringing your music to other formats as well, like maybe having a kind of a UTA movie as well at some point with your songs as a soundtrack?
I don't know about a movie. That's a lot of work. But definitely a graphic novel. I'm working on a graphic novel for both Apex and Abyss. And it's just slow going because right now I have zero time. So I haven't touched it in months. But it's in the works. Hopefully I'll have some time this fall because you can't tour. So hopefully I'll have some time to finish it this fall and then maybe have something out next year for everyone, because I really want to be able to fill in those gaps and explain the story in such a way that people can see how I see it in my head. And, there's only so much that you can do through music and through lyrics. I don't want to muddle up the music side of things by, singing over everything and talking too much and putting too many words in there. So it would be nice to be able to kind of, give everyone the whole, every side of it. And I think that a graphic novel would probably be the best way to do that.
Are you drawing it yourself as well, or do you have someone else to do that?
I have someone that I'm working with on it. I cannot draw. Oh my God. If I were to do it, it would be hilarious. Oh, wow. But I did do some okay, this is like the perspective that I'm looking at here, and it's just like little stick figures, and so it's not good.
That's what I would do as well.
Yeah.
So in short, the story of Apex ends with the immortal bringing the matriarch her first sons, and she kills him, and you're kind of left up in the air with, is she gonna set him free, or is she not? What can you tell us about the continuation of the story? What is the focus on in Abyss?
So at the end of Apex, the immortal gets sent back to his mountain, and the matriarch basically says, you know what, I kind of like having you around. I'm not going to set you free, so go sleep for a bit and I'll give you a call when I need you. And of course, the immortal is kind of like, oh, all right, whatever. And then in Abyss, he wakes up and he's out in space on a spaceship by himself. The matriarch is nowhere to be seen. And he's thinking, I think I might be free of this. Turns out he's not, of course. No spoiler or anything, but the matriarch is definitely angry and pursuing them. And turns out his new master is the grandson of the matriarch. And he's stolen the immortal from her and in hopes of using him against her so that he could finally rid the universe of her evil once and for all. So it's a much lighter record in terms of tonality, just because the immortal kind of feels like maybe he might actually be set free this time.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to ask you that when you look at the cover art, even before you kind of see the songs, you can already kind of get the story a little bit, or at least some hints of it. Is it important for you to give your fans a little bit of an impression first about what the story will be like by just, visual cues?
Absolutely. I think that the album cover is just as important now as it always was. We may not be flipping through records at a store anymore, but we're flipping through albums on a little screen in front of our faces. So I think that the cover artwork is the first shot that you get, really, to explain to people what it is that you do and what your music is all about. So I really wanted it to give that feeling of like an old 1970s science fiction novel, that you might see Dan Simmons or Frank Herbert or that kind of thing. Just to kind of draw you in. And I also really wanted it to depict a specific scene from the record so that you could kind of imagine that in your head as you're listening. So, but yeah, it's super important, just as important now as it ever was. Yeah.
I also wanted to talk to you about the structure of the album. First of all, when you play Apex and Abyss back to back, it flows really nicely into each other. And second of all, the album is also kind of interconnected with Waking Dream and Afterline that share like a melody line or something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
How difficult was it for you to put this album together, considering the order of the tracks and all this kind of information?
It was all very much intertwined, the whole process. We constantly were examining every riff and making sure that it fit where it's supposed to, and that the song sounded right with the one after it and the one before it, and that it was, it seamlessly moving together, and that there was no like abrupt stops or pulling you out of the story any moments that did that or anything like that. So yeah, it was all constantly, and we knew that we wanted a Waking Dream and Afterlife to bookend it. So we wrote those basically like in tangent. As we were writing Afterlife, we found the riff that we felt would work. We used it in Waking Dream, and then as I was writing the chorus for Afterlife, I made sure that it would work in Waking Dream, and then just changed the words and that kind of thing. So it was all like so involved and calculated the whole time, just making sure that everything flowed perfectly from one into the other. Yeah.
Yeah, and the outro as well, it's like really beautiful. And it kind of ends on a climax a little bit even. How did you guys come about that decision?
Well, we just wanted it to be a triumphant end to the story. The saga of the matriarch and the immortal ends here, so we wanted you to feel like it had resolved in a kind of a happy cinematic way, the way that you would feel when you're walking out of a movie theater. And I think that Andrew did a really great job of doing that with the last track. When he sent that to us, we were all just like, yep, nailed it.
A lot of industry professionals, they also kind of usually claim that the album format is kind of getting more and more outdated and singles are the next big thing. But as a band who releases concept albums, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. It's probably not the greatest idea to have written a concept record that you have to really listen to from beginning to end in order to get it. But that's just, telling a story is difficult to do when if you're just going to be putting out one or two, thinking about people just listening to one or two or three songs. So we just kind of hope that we wrote it in such a way that you can listen to the tracks on their own, but also we're just recommending that you try and listen to the record from beginning to end, because that's really how we meant for it to be heard. But I mean, like, it's totally okay if you just want to throw it on a playlist and listen to your favorites as well.
So, well, I guess this interview will be a bit out later than the stream you're doing, but you're also having this concert stream, and I heard somewhere it was pre-recorded, but I wanted to ask you about the experience a little bit.
Yes, yeah, we are going to be doing, we're going to take over Napalm's Instagram on Friday and give everyone all the backstage stuff, all the little sneak peeks of everything. And then the stream goes live on Saturday. And we did record a stream for European Metal Festival Alliance already, and that was super weird and not my favorite. I'd way rather have a crowd in front of me as opposed to cameras. So I really hope that we can get this sorted and that this doesn't become the new norm, because I just, I want to see everyone's smiling faces out there as opposed to imagining them behind a camera. But if everyone tunes in on Saturday, they'll, we did our best, I think, when it comes to playing live, and everyone really enjoyed the European Metal Festival Alliance set. So it'll just kind of be more of that. Hopefully everyone likes it. Yeah.
Well, because of the whole Corona thing, I believe that it's kind of time for bands to innovate as well within the frameworks of the music industry, because it's been all about streaming, and there might be some new things like concert streaming happening. Did you guys have a lot of conversations among the band of what is going to happen when you won't be touring?
Not too much. I mean, we're just going to try and hang out on Twitch really as much as possible. That's really sort of what we've decided to do. Andrew has his own channel. I have my own channel. Grant has his own channel. And then the band has a channel. So we're hoping to get together, a couple times in the fall and maybe do like a hangout jam sort of thing, just play some requests or whatever. But I think for the most part, we're going to try and take advantage of the time off that we have. And, because next year, if everything goes through, it's going to be really busy, hopefully. So I'm going to use this time to write that concept record and, graphic novel. And yeah, just try and hang out on Twitch as much as I can and hang out with the fans.
All right, I think that's it for my questions. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with your fans and people watching this video?
Just thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the new record. And like I said, come hang out on Twitch with us. Twitch.tv/Brittney Slayes UTA is my channel if you want to come watch me play video games and suck really bad at them. But yeah, all the usual haunts: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever is your favorite. We're on there, and we like to keep in touch with our fans as much as possible. So come say hi.